The expensive black SUV slowed on the dusty village road. Inside, the air-conditioned leather interior felt like a different world. Marcus sat behind the wheel, one hand relaxed on the steering wheel, dressed in a designer suit that cost more than most people's monthly salary. Then he saw her. An old woman struggled under the weight of heavy firewood balanced on her head. Her bare feet kicked up dust with each painful step. Her clothes were torn and faded. Sweat poured down her weathered face. "Marcus, my son!" she called out, her voice cracking with hope and desperation. "It's me. It's your mother." Sarah, his fiancée, leaned forward from the passenger seat. "Darling, let's help her. She looks exhausted." But Marcus's face had already changed. His jaw tightened. His eyes went cold and hard. "No," he said sharply. "What?" "Marcus, she's calling you." I said no. His hand moved to the window button. The tinted glass began to rise, slowly cutting the old woman's desperate face from view. "Marcus, please!" the woman cried, her hand reaching out. "Wait! It's Mama Rose, your mother!" But the window sealed shut. The engine growled, and Marcus pressed his foot hard on the accelerator, leaving a cloud of dust and a heartbroken mother behind. Sarah turned to stare at her fiancé, suddenly wondering if she knew him at all. If you want to know what happens next, keep watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Marcus Chun had not always been rich. There was a time when his stomach knew hunger better than satisfaction. A time when his feet wore torn slippers instead of Italian leather shoes. A time when home was a small mud house with a leaking roof, not a mansion in the wealthy suburbs of the city. That was 20 years ago, back in Riverside Village, before success transformed him into someone even he barely recognized. His father died when Marcus was only 9 years old. One day his father went to work at the construction site, and he never came home. A falling beam, an accident, a funeral that left young Marcus and his mother, Rose, completely alone in a world that showed no mercy to widows and orphans. Everything fell on Mama Rose's shoulders after that. She became mother and father, breadwinner and caretaker. She woke before sunrise to gather firewood from the forest, balanced heavy loads on her head, and walked miles to the market to sell the wood for a few coins. With those coins, she bought Marcus's school books. She paid his fees. She kept him fed, clothed, and hopeful. "Marcus," she would say, her hands rough from years of hard labor, gently touching his face. "You will not suffer like me. You are going to be great. You will go far." And Marcus did go far. He earned a scholarship to the city university. He studied finance and business. He worked 3 jobs while taking classes. He slept 4 hours a night. He pushed, climbed, and fought his way up every ladder he could find. Then success came. First a job at an investment firm. Then his own consulting company. Then partnerships with wealthy businessmen. Money started flowing. Then pouring. Then flooding. Within 10 years, Marcus became one of the youngest billionaires in the country. His face appeared in business magazines. His company towers dominated the city's skyline. His name carried weight in boardrooms and government offices. But somewhere along that climb, something inside Marcus changed. With every step up the economic ladder, he pushed his past down further into the shadows of his memory. The village became an embarrassment. His humble beginnings became a secret, and his mother became a reminder of everything he wanted to forget. At first, he sent money home. Small amounts compared to his wealth, but he sent it. Then the amounts got smaller. Then they stopped altogether. He changed his phone number without telling her. He told his assistants to block any calls from the village. "If anyone from Riverside calls," he instructed them, "I'm not available. I'm too busy. Tell them I'll visit later." Later never came. Marcus built a wall between his present and his past, brick by expensive brick. He bought a mansion with 10 bedrooms, marble floors, and a fountain in the courtyard. He collected luxury cars. He wore custom suits and Swiss watches. He attended exclusive parties where champagne flowed like water. And he told himself he deserved it all. He had worked for it. He had earned it. He owed no one anything, not even the woman who had given him everything. Then Sarah entered his life at a charity gala, beautiful and educated, the daughter of a prominent doctor. She was elegant, confident, and everything Marcus thought he needed to complete his perfect new life. When they started talking about marriage, Sarah said something that made his blood run cold. "Marcus, before we get married, I want to meet your mother," she said one evening over dinner. "I want her blessing. Family is important to me." Marcus's smile froze on his face. He quickly covered it with a casual laugh. "My mother, she's not really around much. Village life, you know. She travels a lot." Sarah frowned. "What do you mean? Doesn't she want to meet me?" "Of course she does," Marcus lied smoothly. "It's just complicated right now. Maybe after the wedding." But Sarah was persistent. She brought it up again and again. Finally, Marcus realized he had to do something before Sarah became suspicious. So he made a plan. A calculated, selfish plan. He would take Sarah to Riverside for a quick drive through the village. He would show her a few landmarks, maybe point out where he went to school, then drive right back to the city. No mother. No emotional reunions. No uncomfortable questions about why he had stayed away for so long. Just a quick trip to satisfy Sarah's curiosity, then back to his carefully constructed life. That was the plan. Simple. Clean. Safe. Until that morning when they drove down the village road and Mama Rose appeared, struggling under the weight of firewood, calling his name with tears in her eyes. And Marcus's entire world began to crumble. While Marcus built his empire in the city, Mama Rose carried firewood in the village. Every morning, she woke before the sun rose. Her body ached more with each passing year, but she had no choice. Survival meant work, and work meant walking deep into the forest to gather wood. The forest was not close. It took her almost 2 hours to reach the thick groves where good firewood could be found. She carried a small axe, worn smooth from years of use, and spent hours cutting branches, stacking them carefully. Then came the hard part, carrying them home. She would arrange the wood into a large bundle, tie it with rough rope, and lift it onto her head. The weight pressed down on her neck and shoulders. Every step home was painful. Her bare feet knew every rock and thorn on that path. But Mama Rose never complained. Not out loud, anyway. She would sell the firewood at the village market for a small amount of money. Sometimes she earned enough to buy rice and vegetables. Sometimes she could afford cooking oil. On good days, she treated herself to a piece of dried fish. At night, she sat alone in the small mud house where she had raised Marcus. The roof still leaked when it rained. The walls had cracks. The door hung crooked on its hinges. But the house held memories. Good memories. Mama Rose would sit on her thin mattress and remember when Marcus was young. She remembered his laugh. She remembered how he used to help her in the garden. She remembered the day he left for the city, his eyes bright with hope and promise. "I'll make you proud, Mama," he had said, hugging her tightly. "I'll come back for you. I promise." Mama Rose had believed him. She waited. She kept the house clean, hoping he would visit. She saved a little money, imagining the day her son would return and take her to live with him in the city. But years passed. The visits never came. The phone calls stopped. Even the money dried up. The villagers knew. They saw Mama Rose growing older and thinner. They heard her asking about Marcus whenever someone returned from the city. "Have you seen my son?" she would ask eagerly. "Marcus Chin? He's doing very well now. He's very successful." The villagers would shake their heads or change the subject. Some pitied her. Others whispered behind her back. "That woman's son has forgotten her," they said. "He's too big now. Too rich. He's ashamed of where he came from." But Mama Rose refused to believe it. "My Marcus is just busy," she would tell anyone who listened. "He's building his company. He'll come when he has time." Deep in her heart, though, doubt had begun to grow like a weed. There were nights when she cried herself to sleep, wondering what she had done wrong. Had she not loved him enough? Had she not sacrificed enough? She thought about all the times she had gone hungry so Marcus could eat. All the times she had worked until her hands bled so he could have school uniforms. All the times she had walked miles in the rain to pay his school fees. "God," she prayed in the darkness, "if I failed him somehow, please show me how. If I did something wrong, let me know so I can fix it." But no answers came. One day, Mama Rose grew very ill. Fever consumed her body. She lay on her mattress, shaking and weak. A kind neighbor brought her water and soup, But Mama Rose needed medicine she could not afford. "Should we try to contact your son?" the neighbor asked gently. Mama Rose's eyes filled with tears. "I don't have his new number," she whispered. "I've tried calling the old one, but it doesn't work anymore." The neighbor said nothing, but her expression said everything. Mama Rose recovered slowly, with the help of village herbalists and the kindness of neighbors who brought her food. But something inside her had changed. The hope she had carried for so long began to crack. Still, she continued her routine. Firewood in the morning, market in the afternoon, prayers at night. And always, she thought about Marcus. She wondered if he thought about her. She wondered if he remembered the sacrifices. She wondered if he had become one of those people who forget where they came from once they reach the top. Then came that morning, the morning that would change everything. Mama Rose was returning from the forest, firewood balanced on her head, when she heard the sound of an expensive car engine. She looked up and saw a black SUV driving slowly down the dusty village road. The windows were tinted, but as the vehicle came closer, the driver's window rolled down slightly. Mama Rose's heart nearly stopped. Even after all these years, she recognized that face, those eyes, that expression. "Marcus!" she cried out, her voice breaking with emotion. "My son!" Hope exploded in her chest. Her legs, tired from carrying wood, suddenly found strength. She stepped toward the vehicle, her hand reaching out. "Marcus, it's me. It's your mother." For one beautiful second, she believed everything would be okay. She believed her son had finally come home. She believed the years of waiting were over. Then she saw his face change. She saw his jaw tighten. She saw his eyes go cold. And she watched, heartbroken, as he rolled up the window and drove away, leaving her standing in a cloud of dust and shattered dreams. Sarah sat frozen in the passenger seat as Marcus drove away from the village at dangerous speed. The silence between them was heavy, uncomfortable, broken only by the sound of the engine and tires on the rough road. Her mind kept replaying what she had just witnessed. The old woman, the firewood, the desperate voice calling Marcus's name, the tears streaming down wrinkled cheeks, and Marcus's cold, emotionless response. "Marcus," Sarah finally said, her voice careful and measured. "That woman called you son." Marcus's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. "I don't want to talk about it. She said she was your mother." "She's not," Marcus snapped, his voice sharp as broken glass. Sarah turned in her seat to face him fully. "Marcus, I saw your face. You recognized her. And that text message on your phone." "Enough, Sarah!" Marcus's shout filled the car. "I said I don't want to talk about it." Sarah flinched. In the 6 months they had been together, she had never heard him raise his voice like this. The Marcus she knew was always composed, always in control, always the perfect gentleman. This Marcus was different. This Marcus was angry, defensive, and frightened of something Sarah couldn't quite understand. They drove in silence for another hour. As the village disappeared behind them and the city skyline emerged ahead, Sarah's mind raced with questions. Who was that woman really? Why had Marcus reacted so strongly? What was he hiding? When they finally reached Marcus's mansion in the wealthy East Side district, the electronic gates opened smoothly. The compound was beautiful, manicured lawns, flowering gardens, a fountain that sparkled in the afternoon sun. Everything perfect. Everything controlled. Inside, the house was cool and elegant. Marble floors reflected light from crystal chandeliers. Modern art hung on white walls. It was the kind of home featured in luxury magazines. But Sarah suddenly saw it differently. She saw it as a fortress, a carefully constructed barrier between Marcus and a past he desperately wanted to forget. "Marcus," she said quietly as they stood in the enormous living room, "we need to talk about what happened." Marcus loosened his tie and sat on the leather sofa, his face hard. "There's nothing to talk about. That woman is not my mother," Marcus interrupted coldly. "My mother died years ago." Sarah felt her heart skip. The lie was so smooth, so confident. If she hadn't seen the fear in his eyes when the old woman called his name, she might have believed him. "Then why did she know your name?" Sarah pressed gently. "Why did you look so?" "Village people are cunning," Marcus said, his voice taking on a harsh tone Sarah had never heard before. "They see an expensive car and they try tricks. They call out names, hoping for money. That woman probably heard about me from someone and decided to try her luck. Sarah stared at him. Marcus, that doesn't make sense. She looked genuinely. Sarah! Marcus stood up, his body tense. I'm telling you this once, and I need you to hear me clearly. That woman is not my mother. If you keep bringing this up, you're going to ruin everything we have. The threat hung in the air between them. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. This wasn't a request. It was a warning. She nodded slowly, not because she believed him, but because she was suddenly afraid of a stranger standing before her. Marcus's expression softened slightly. He approached her and touched her shoulder. I'm sorry for raising my voice, he said, his tone gentler now. It's just, village people can be dangerous. Spiritually dangerous. Some of them practice dark things. I was protecting us. Sarah wanted to argue. She wanted to demand the truth. But something in Marcus's eyes made her stay silent. She had never seen him look so desperate, so determined to be believed. Okay, she whispered. Marcus pulled her into an embrace. Thank you for understanding. Now let's forget about this and focus on our wedding plans, okay? We have so much to look forward to. Sarah hugged him back, but her mind was far away. She was thinking about an old woman crying on a dusty road. She was thinking about the text message that flashed on Marcus's phone. Marcus, please. It's Mama. And she was thinking about the man she was about to marry, wondering if she really knew him at all. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She lay in the guest room of Marcus's mansion, staring at the ceiling. Around 2 a.m., she quietly got out of bed and went to find her phone. She had memorized the phone number from the text message she had glimpsed on Marcus's screen. Her hands shook as she typed it into her phone. Should she call? Should she leave it alone? Sarah thought about her own mother, who had passed away when Sarah was in college. She remembered the pain of loss, the regret of words left unsaid. If there was even a chance that the old woman was really Marcus's mother. She pressed the call button. The phone rang, and rang, and rang. No answer. Sarah tried again. Still nothing. She sent a text message. Hello. This is Sarah. I was in the car with Marcus today. Please, if you're really his mother, call me back. I want to help. She waited for a response, but none came. Finally, exhausted and confused, Sarah fell asleep with her phone clutched in her hand, unaware that in a small village miles away, an old woman lay on a thin mattress, too heartbroken to check her phone, crying herself to sleep. 3 months later, the wedding was the talk of the city. The venue was the Grand Palace Hotel, a 5-star establishment that overlooked the river. Every detail was perfect because Marcus insisted on perfection. Crystal chandeliers hung from high ceilings. White roses and orchids covered every surface. A live orchestra played classical music. The guest list included politicians, business tycoons, and celebrities. Marcus had spared no expense. The wedding cost more than most people earned in a lifetime. Sarah stood in the bridal suite, looking at herself in a full-length mirror. Her wedding gown was custom-designed, covered in delicate lace and tiny pearls. Her makeup was flawless. Her hair was styled in elegant waves. She looked like a princess. She should have felt like one too. But something heavy sat in her chest. You look absolutely stunning, her best friend, Michelle, said, adjusting Sarah's veil. Marcus is so lucky. Sarah forced a smile. Thank you. Are you nervous? Michelle asked. It's normal to have wedding day jitters. I'm fine, Sarah lied. But she wasn't fine. For the past 3 months, every time she tried to bring up the incident with the old woman, Marcus shut down the conversation. He became cold or angry or dismissive. Eventually, Sarah stopped trying. She told herself it didn't matter. She told herself every couple had secrets. She told herself love meant accepting imperfections. But late at night, when she was alone, Sarah's mind returned to that dusty village road. To the firewood, to the tears, to the voice calling out my son with such desperate hope. She had tried calling that number several more times over the months. It never connected. She had considered hiring someone to investigate, but what would she say? I think my fiancé is lying about his dead mother. It sounded crazy. So Sarah pushed her doubts down, deep down, and focused on wedding preparations. She chose flowers. She tasted cakes. She sent invitations. She did all the things a happy bride should do. And she tried very hard not to think about the one person who wouldn't be at the wedding, Marcus's mother. When Sarah asked about it, Marcus had a ready answer. "My mother died when I was in college," he said smoothly. "It's painful to talk about. That's why I don't bring it up much." "What about other family?" Sarah asked. "Aunts, uncles, cousins?" Marcus shook his head. "I was an only child, and my mother's family disowned her when she married my father. After she died, I was alone. That's part of why I work so hard now. I had to make it on my own." The story was sad and believable. It made Marcus seem even more impressive, a self-made man who overcame tragedy. Sarah wanted to believe it, so she did, or at least she pretended to. Now, standing in her wedding dress, Sarah looked around the bridal suite. Michelle was there. Her father was there. Several cousins and friends. People who loved her and wanted to support her. But in the back of her mind, she wondered, was there an old woman in a village somewhere wondering why her son never came home? Wondering why she wasn't invited to his wedding? "It's time," Michelle said, touching Sarah's arm gently. "Your father is waiting to walk you down the aisle." Sarah took a deep breath, picked up her bouquet, and walked toward her future. The ceremony was beautiful. The church was packed with well-dressed guests. When the doors opened and Sarah began her walk down the aisle, everyone stood. She saw faces smiling at her. She saw cameras flashing. And at the end of the aisle, she saw Marcus. He looked handsome in his tailored tuxedo, standing tall and confident. When his eyes met hers, he smiled. For a moment, Sarah's doubts melted away. This was the man she loved. This was the man she had chosen. Her father placed her hand in Marcus's. The pastor began speaking about love, commitment, and faithfulness. "Do you, Marcus Chen, take Sarah Lynn to be your lawfully wedded wife?" "I do," Marcus said firmly. "Do you, Sarah Lynn, take Marcus Chen to be your lawfully wedded husband?" Sarah hesitated for just a fraction of a second. Then she said, "I do." They exchanged rings. The pastor pronounced them husband and wife. Marcus lifted her veil and kissed her while the crowd applauded. It should have been the happiest moment of Sarah's life. Instead, as Marcus held her hand and they walked back down the aisle as a married couple, Sarah's eyes scanned the crowd. She saw everyone celebrating, everyone happy, but she also saw an empty seat in the front row, a seat that should have been filled by a mother-in-law she would never meet. And somewhere deep in her heart, Sarah felt a crack begin to form. The reception was magnificent, a 10-course meal, speeches that praised Marcus's success and generosity, dancing, laughter, champagne toasts. Marcus gave a speech that made people cry. He talked about building a life from nothing. He talked about determination and hard work. He talked about being grateful for everyone who supported him. But he never mentioned his mother. Late in the evening, after most guests had left, Sarah stood on the hotel balcony, still in her wedding gown. The city lights sparkled below. Music drifted from the ballroom inside. Marcus came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. "Happy?" he asked. "Yes," Sarah said. And part of her meant it. "This is just the beginning," Marcus whispered. "We're going to have an amazing life together." Sarah leaned against him, but her mind was far away. She was thinking about a promise she had made to herself that morning. If she ever found out the truth about that old woman, she would do the right thing, no matter what it cost. 6 months after the wedding, Sarah had almost convinced herself that everything was fine. She had moved into Marcus's mansion fully. She had settled into life as Mrs. Chen. She attended charity galas and business dinners. She smiled for photographs. She played the role of the perfect billionaire's wife. Marcus was attentive and generous. He bought her jewelry, took her on luxury vacations, and made sure she had everything she could want materially. But there were cracks beneath the surface that Sarah couldn't ignore. Marcus never wanted to talk about his childhood. He never visited his village. When Sarah suggested they donate to rural development projects, Marcus always found excuses to delay or change the subject. And late at night, Sarah sometimes woke to find Marcus sitting in his study, staring at nothing, his face troubled in ways he never showed during the day. "Are you okay?" she would ask. "Just work stress," he would say. "Go back to bed." But Sarah knew it was more than that. She could feel it. Then one Tuesday morning, everything changed. Sarah was in the kitchen, sipping coffee and reading the news on her tablet, when she heard unusual sounds outside. Car doors slamming, heavy footsteps, serious voices. Before she could even process what was happening, the front door burst open. Men in official uniforms entered the house. They weren't police, but they carried themselves with unmistakable authority. Economic Crimes Investigation Unit, their badges read. Sarah's coffee cup slipped from her hand and shattered on the marble floor. "What's going on?" she gasped. Marcus emerged from his study, his face pale. "What is the meaning of this?" The lead investigator, a stern woman in her 50s, held up a document. "Marcus Chun, you are under arrest for corporate fraud, tax evasion, and money laundering." The words hit Sarah like physical blows. Fraud, tax evasion, money laundering. "This is ridiculous," Marcus said, his voice rising. "Do you know who I am?" "Yes, Mr. Chun," the investigator said coldly. "We know exactly who you are. That's why we're here." "I want to call my lawyer," Marcus demanded. "You can call from the station," another officer said, pulling out handcuffs. "Wait!" Sarah cried, moving toward Marcus. "There must be some mistake." The investigator looked at her with something like pity. "Mrs. Chun, I suggest you contact a good lawyer. Your husband is facing very serious charges." Sarah watched in horror as they handcuffed Marcus. His expensive watch glinted under the chandelier lights. His tailored suit suddenly looked ridiculous next to the officers' uniforms. "Sarah," Marcus said, his eyes meeting hers for the first time since the officers arrived. And in that moment, Sarah saw something she had never seen before in her husband's eyes. Genuine fear. Not the controlled concern of a businessman facing a challenge. Not the calculated worry of someone managing a problem. But raw, terrified fear. "Sarah, don't let them take everything," Marcus said as they led him toward the door. "Call Richardson. He knows what to do." "Marcus!" Sarah tried to follow, but one of the officers gently held her back. "Please, ma'am, let us do our job." Sarah could only stand there, frozen in her designer kitchen, as her husband was led out of their mansion in handcuffs. The gates closed behind the official vehicles. The house fell silent again, and Sarah realized her perfect life had just collapsed like a house made of cards. She ran to Marcus's study. Papers were scattered everywhere. His computer was gone. The investigators had taken it. She found his private phone in a drawer and called Richardson, Marcus's attorney. "Sarah!" Richardson's voice was tense. "I just heard. Where's Marcus?" "They took him." Sarah's voice broke. "They said fraud and tax evasion." "What's happening?" Richardson was quiet for a moment. "I'll meet you at the house in 30 minutes. Don't talk to anyone. Don't post anything online. Don't answer any questions from reporters." "Reporters?" Sarah's stomach dropped further. "This is going to be news, Sarah. Big news. Prepare yourself." The line went dead. Sarah sank into Marcus's leather office chair, her mind spinning. She looked around the study, the expensive art, the awards and plaques, the photographs of Marcus shaking hands with important people. Had it all been built on lies? Then her eyes landed on something that made her blood run cold. A brown envelope on the corner of Marcus's desk, partially hidden under some files. Sarah pulled it out with shaking hands. Inside were documents, legal documents, financial records, and a letter, handwritten, that began, "To whom it may concern, I am writing to report serious financial irregularities." Sarah's hands trembled as she read. The letter detailed falsified accounts, hidden transactions, and deliberately misleading tax filings. It was signed and dated 6 months ago. Someone had been investigating Marcus for half a year, building a case methodically and carefully. But who? Sarah flipped to the last page and saw a name at the bottom that made no sense to her. Submitted by concerned citizen Rose Chun, Riverside Village. Rose Chun, Riverside Village. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. The old woman. The woman carrying firewood. The woman Marcus had denied. Could it be? But that didn't make sense. An old village woman wouldn't have access to Marcus's corporate records. She wouldn't know how to file a formal complaint with the Economic Crimes Unit. Unless, Sarah's mind raced, unless someone had helped her, unless someone had believed her story and decided to investigate, unless Marcus's denial of his mother had set off a chain of events he never anticipated. Sarah sat there for a long time, holding those papers, as the morning sun streamed through the study windows. Her phone rang. It was Richardson, then Michelle, then her father, then reporters started calling. Somehow they had already gotten her number. But Sarah didn't answer any of them. She just sat in that expensive leather chair, in that beautiful mansion, surrounded by luxury built on lies, and wondered, had Marcus's greatest sin been fraud? Or had it been the moment he rolled up that car window and drove away from the woman who gave him everything? The courtroom was packed with journalists, curious onlookers, and people who had once smiled at Marcus at business events but now watched his downfall with cold fascination. Marcus sat at the defendant's table, wearing a simple suit instead of his usual designer clothes. His hands were clenched in his lap. His face was drawn, the confident billionaire swagger completely gone. Sarah sat in the gallery behind him, her heart breaking with every word spoken. The prosecutor presented evidence, methodically and devastatingly. Bank records showing hidden accounts, emails proving deliberate fraud, testimony from whistleblowers who had worked in Marcus's company, tax documents that had been falsified. Marcus's lawyer, Richardson, tried his best. He argued about context, about complex financial regulations, about misunderstandings. But even Sarah could see the defense was weak. The evidence was overwhelming. When it came time for sentencing, the judge looked down at Marcus with stern disapproval. "Mr. Chun," the judge began, "you have been found guilty of multiple counts of corporate fraud and tax evasion. The evidence shows a pattern of deliberate deception lasting years. You used your position and influence to steal from the public coffers and enrich yourself while pretending to be a philanthropist and upstanding citizen." Marcus's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. "This court sentences you to 20 years imprisonment," the judge declared. Gasps filled the courtroom. Sarah felt the room spin. 20 years. Marcus's shoulders sagged. For a moment, he looked like he might collapse. The officers moved forward to take him away. Marcus turned to look at Sarah one last time. Their eyes met, and in that moment, Sarah saw not the arrogant billionaire she had married, but a broken man who had finally been forced to face consequences. "I'm sorry," Marcus mouthed silently. Then they let him away. The first months in prison destroyed whatever remained of Marcus's pride. Gone were the silk sheets and temperature-controlled rooms. Now he slept on a thin mattress in a cell he shared with 3 other inmates. The food was bland and insufficient. The days were long and identical. The nights were filled with sounds he had never imagined. Men crying, arguing, praying. Marcus had always controlled everything in his life. In prison, he controlled nothing. His cellmates showed him no special treatment because he had been rich. In fact, some of them resented him more because of it. "Look at the big billionaire," one man sneered the first week. "Not so big now, are you?" Marcus learned to keep his head down. He learned to stay quiet. He learned that in prison, your past wealth meant nothing. Sarah visited every week at first. She sat across from him in the visitation room, holding the phone while they talked through the glass partition. "How are you holding up?" she would ask, though the answer was obvious from his appearance. Marcus lost weight rapidly. Dark circles formed under his eyes. His skin took on an unhealthy gray tone. "I'm managing," he would lie. But he wasn't managing. Every night, lying on that thin mattress, Marcus's mind replayed his life. The choices he made, the people he hurt, the lies he told, and increasingly, one memory dominated all the others, his mother. He saw her face in his dreams. Not the old, tired face from that day on the village road, but her younger face from his childhood. He remembered her smiling at him after selling firewood all day, even though her feet were bleeding. He remembered her serving him food while she ate nothing herself. He remembered her gentle voice saying, "You will go far, my son." And he had gone far. So far that he forgot how he got there. So far that he denied the woman who made it all possible. 6 months into his sentence, something inside Marcus finally broke. It was late at night. His cellmates were asleep. The prison was quiet except for the distant sounds of guards making their rounds. Marcus lay there, staring at the ceiling, and for the first time in years, he allowed himself to feel everything he had been suppressing. The shame, the guilt, the regret, and then he began to cry. Not silent tears, but deep, wrenching sobs that shook his entire body. He covered his mouth with his hands, trying to stay quiet, but the grief poured out of him like water from a broken dam. "Mama," he whispered into his hands. "Mama, I'm so sorry." One of his cellmates stirred and looked over. Instead of mocking him, the man just watched quietly, then turned away to give Marcus privacy. Even in prison, some things were understood. A man crying for his mother was sacred. That night marked a turning point. Marcus began to change, not on the outside, but on the inside. He stopped blaming others for his situation. He stopped making excuses. He accepted that he deserved to be here, not just because of the financial crimes, but because of something deeper. He had betrayed the person who loved him most. During Sarah's next visit, Marcus looked different. Still thin, still tired, but something in his eyes had shifted. "Sarah," he said quietly, "I need to ask you something." "What is it?" Marcus took a deep breath. "That day in the village. The woman with the firewood. Do you remember her?" Sarah's heart skipped. "Yes. I lied to you," Marcus said, tears forming in his eyes. "She was my mother. Her name is Rose. Mama Rose." Sarah had suspected this for months, but hearing him finally admit it still hit hard. "Why did you lie?" "Because I was ashamed," Marcus said, his voice breaking. "Ashamed of where I came from. Ashamed that my mother sold firewood while I lived in a mansion. I thought if I just cut her out of my life, I could pretend I had always been rich. I could pretend I was born successful." "Oh, Marcus," Sarah whispered. "I need you to do something for me," Marcus said urgently. "I need you to go to Riverside Village. I need you to find my mother. I need to apologize to her. I need her to know I'm sorry." Sarah nodded slowly. "Okay, I'll go." "Thank you," Marcus said. "And Sarah, if she won't forgive me, I'll understand. But I need her to know that I know I was wrong. I need her to know that I remember everything she did for me." That conversation stayed with Sarah for days. She prepared for the journey to Riverside Village with a mixture of hope and dread. What would she find there? Would Mama Rose even agree to see her? Would she be angry? Bitter? Forgiving? Sarah had no idea, but she knew she had to try. For Marcus. And maybe for her own peace of mind, too. The drive to Riverside Village took 3 hours. Sarah sat in the back of the hired car, watching the landscape transform from city towers to suburban houses to rural farmland. She had dressed simply for the trip. A plain dress, comfortable shoes, minimal jewelry. She didn't want to appear as the wealthy city woman coming to judge anyone. She was here to listen, to understand, and to deliver a message if possible. The driver, an older man named Joseph who knew the rural routes well, glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "First time to Riverside?" he asked. "Yes," Sarah admitted. "Visiting family?" Sarah hesitated. "Sort of. I'm looking for someone. A woman named Rose Chun." Joseph's expression changed slightly. "Mama Rose." Sarah's heart jumped. "You know her." "Everyone knows Mama Rose," Joseph said quietly. "Good woman. Hard life. Can you take me to her house?" Sarah asked. Joseph nodded but said nothing more. The silence felt heavy with meaning Sarah couldn't quite interpret. As they entered the village, Sarah was struck by how different it was from her world. The roads were unpaved and dusty. Houses were small, made of mud bricks with metal roofs. Children played barefoot in the streets. Women carried water containers on their heads. Men sat under trees, repairing tools or talking. It was poverty, but it wasn't without dignity. People greeted each other warmly. Neighbors helped neighbors. There was a sense of community Sarah rarely saw in the city. The car slowed and stopped in front of a particularly small house. The compound gate was just wooden poles tied together. The house itself looked old and weather-beaten. "This is it," Joseph said softly. Sarah's hands trembled as she opened the car door. "Will you wait for me?" "Take your time," Joseph said. Something in his voice made Sarah's stomach tighten with worry. She walked slowly toward the house. The compound was quiet. Too quiet. "Hello," Sarah called out. "Mama Rose." No answer. Sarah pushed open the weak wooden gate. The compound was small and empty. Some firewood was stacked against the wall. A few cooking pots set near a cold fire pit. Everything looked abandoned. Sarah approached the house door and knocked. "Hello. Is anyone home?" Nothing. Her heart pounding, Sarah pushed the door open. It wasn't locked. Inside, the house was dim and sparse. A thin mattress on the floor, a small wooden stool, a cracked plastic bucket, a few cooking utensils. That was all. But no one was there. Sarah stepped back outside, confused and worried. Where was Mama Rose? An elderly woman appeared from the neighboring compound, leaning on a walking stick. She looked at Sarah with curiosity and suspicion. "Who are you looking for?" the woman asked in the local dialect. Sarah understood enough to respond. "Mama Rose. Rose Chun. I'm looking for her." The old woman's face softened with sadness. "You didn't hear?" Sarah's blood went cold. "Hear what?" The woman sighed deeply. "Mama Rose died. 2 weeks ago." The world stopped. Sarah felt her knees weaken. She reached out to steady herself against the wall. "Dead," she whispered. "Yes, my daughter," the old woman said gently. "She was very sick. Nobody was here to help her. She died quietly in her house. We buried her in the village cemetery." Tears sprang to Sarah's eyes. "No, no, please. Are you sure?" The woman nodded sadly. "I was with her at the end. She talked about her son, Marcus. She kept saying his name. She kept hoping he would come." Sarah covered her mouth to keep from crying out loud. The grief hit her like a wave, grief for a woman she had never known but somehow felt connected to. Grief for Marcus, who would never get the chance to apologize. Grief for all the wasted time, the wasted love, the wasted opportunities. "Did she?" Sarah's voice broke. "Did she suffer?" "She suffered for many years," the old woman said. "Not just from sickness, from heartbreak. Her son forgot her. That pain was worse than any disease." Sarah sank down onto the ground right there, her tears flowing freely now. The old woman came closer and sat beside her. "You knew Mama Rose?" "I'm Marcus's wife," Sarah admitted. The old woman's expression hardened slightly. "Ah, the son who became rich and forgot his mother." "He didn't forget," Sarah said, though she knew it was a weak defense. He was lost. He made terrible mistakes. Those mistakes cost Mama Rose her life," the old woman said bluntly. "She waited for him. Every day she waited. Even when she was dying, she hoped he would come." Sarah wept harder. "I wanted to bring her to him. He's in prison now. He finally understands what he did wrong. He wanted to apologize. He wanted her forgiveness." The old woman shook her head. "Too late. Death doesn't wait for apologies." They sat in silence for several minutes. Then Sarah asked, "Can you take me to her grave?" The old woman stood slowly. "Come." They walked through the village to a small cemetery on the edge of town. Simple graves marked with stones or wooden crosses. No fancy monuments, just humble resting places. The old woman stopped at a fresh mound of earth. A simple wooden cross marked the spot. Someone had carved Rose Chun into the wood. Sarah knelt beside the grave. She placed her hand on the earth, still soft from recent burial. "Mama Rose," Sarah whispered. "I'm Sarah. I married your son. I know you never got to meet me. I know you should have been at our wedding. I know you deserved so much more than what life gave you." Her voice broke. "Marcus sent me to tell you he's sorry. He knows what he did was unforgivable. He knows he failed you. He wants you to know that he remembers everything. All the firewood, all the sacrifices, all the love you gave him." Sarah wiped her tears. "I know it's too late. I know you can't hear me. But I needed to say it anyway. You deserved a better son. You deserved to see him succeed and share in his joy. You deserved his love and respect." The old woman stood nearby, crying quietly too. "She was a good woman," the neighbor said. "She never spoke badly about Marcus, even when the village people criticized him. She always said, 'My son is busy. He'll come when he can.' She loved him until her last breath." That made Sarah cry even harder, because unconditional love like that was rare, and Marcus had thrown it away for pride and shame. Sarah stayed at the grave for a long time. She prayed. She cried. She made promises to a woman who could no longer hear them. Finally, as the sun began to set, Sarah stood up. "Thank you for showing me," she told the old woman. "Will you tell Marcus?" the neighbor asked. "Yes," Sarah said quietly. "I'll tell him his mother is gone, and that it's his fault she died alone." The old woman nodded. "Maybe that truth will save his soul, even if it breaks his heart." Sarah returned to the car. Joseph saw her face and asked no questions. He simply started the engine and began the long drive back to the city. Sarah sat in the back seat, staring out the window, preparing herself for the hardest conversation of her life. She had to tell a man in prison that his mother had died, and that he would never get the chance to say goodbye. The prison visitation room felt colder than usual. Marcus sat at the table, his heart full of nervous hope. Sarah had promised to visit Mama Rose, and today she would tell him how it went. Maybe his mother had forgiven him. Maybe she had agreed to visit. Maybe, just maybe, Marcus could begin to repair the damage he had caused. When Sarah walked in, Marcus immediately knew something was wrong. Her eyes were red and swollen. Her face was pale. She moved slowly, like someone carrying an unbearable weight. "Sarah!" Marcus said as she sat down and picked up the phone. "What happened? Did you find her?" Sarah's hand trembled as she held the phone. She opened her mouth to speak, then closed it. Tears began streaming down her face. "Sarah, please," Marcus said, his voice rising with panic. "Tell me, what's wrong?" Sarah took a shaky breath. "Marcus, I went to Riverside Village." "Yes, and I found your mother's house. You talked to her?" Marcus leaned forward eagerly. Sarah shook her head slowly. "No, I didn't talk to her." "Why not? Was she not there?" "Sarah, what's going on?" Sarah's voice came out as barely a whisper. "Marcus, your mother is dead." Time stopped. Marcus stared at Sarah, certain he had misheard. "What?" "She died 2 weeks ago," Sarah said through her tears. "She was sick, Marcus. Very sick. And she was alone. Nobody was there to take care of her." "No," Marcus said, shaking his head violently. "No, that's not true. That can't be true." "I spoke to her neighbor," Sarah continued, her voice breaking. "I saw her grave. Marcus, she's gone." A sound came out of Marcus that didn't seem human. A roar of pain, raw and primal. He stood up so violently that his chair fell backward. His hands went to his head, pulling at his hair. "And oh!" he screamed. "No, no, no!" Guards rushed into the room, but Sarah quickly signaled them that she was safe. They stepped back but stayed close, watching Marcus carefully. Marcus collapsed to his knees, his whole body shaking. He sobbed so hard he could barely breathe. "I killed her," he cried. "I killed my mother. Marcus! I left her alone." Marcus screamed at the floor. "She was sick and dying, and I wasn't there. She called my name, and I drove away. What kind of monster am I?" Sarah was crying too. "The neighbors said your mother talked about you until the end. She kept hoping you would come. She never stopped loving you." That made Marcus cry harder. "She loved me, and I threw her away like garbage. I denied her. I was ashamed of her. Oh God, what have I done?" The guards finally intervened, lifting Marcus to his feet. He could barely stand. His grief had physically broken him. "I need to see her," Marcus said desperately to Sarah. "I need to go to her grave. Please, Sarah. Please help me." "I'll try," Sarah promised. "I'll talk to the authorities. I'll see if they can arrange something." But they both knew it would take time. Time Marcus felt he didn't have. Time that his mother no longer had at all. As the guards led Marcus back to his cell, his legs gave out twice. They had to carry him. Other inmates watched silently, recognizing the kind of grief that breaks a man completely. That night was the worst of Marcus's life. He lay on his thin mattress, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment with his mother that he could remember. He remembered being 7 years old, watching her cook with firewood because they couldn't afford a gas stove. He remembered her hands, rough and callous from years of hard work. He remembered how she would go to bed hungry so he could eat. And he remembered the last time he saw her. The firewood on her head, the hope in her eyes, the desperate love in her voice. And his response, rolling up the window, driving away, denying her existence. "I'm sorry, Mama," Marcus whispered into the darkness. "I'm so sorry." His cellmate, a man named David who was serving time for robbery, spoke quietly from his bunk. "Your mother." "I denied her," Marcus said. "When she needed me most, I pretended I didn't know her. And now she's dead." David was quiet for a moment. "I used to beat my wife," he said finally. "I thought I was a big man. Strong. Tough. But really, I was just a coward who hurt the person who loved me. Marcus turned to look at him in the darkness. Being in here taught me something, David continued. We can't fix the past. We can only learn from it. Your mother is gone. You can't apologize to her anymore. But you can honor her memory by becoming a better man. How? Marcus asked. How do I live with this? One day at a time, David said. And by never forgetting what it cost you to learn this lesson. The next few weeks were torture. Sarah worked tirelessly to arrange a visit to Mama Rose's grave. She filed petitions, contacted lawyers, and eventually reached the prison warden directly. The warden was a stern but fair woman named Mrs. Adewale. She read Sarah's petition and looked at Marcus's prison record. He's been well behaved, Mrs. Adewale said. No trouble. No violence. And this is his mother's grave. Yes, Sarah confirmed. It would mean everything to him. It might be the only way he can begin to heal. Mrs. Adewale considered for a long moment. Then she nodded. I'll approve it, but it will be under heavy security. 2 guards minimum. Handcuffs the entire time. And only 2 hours. Thank you, Sarah said, relief washing over her. Thank you so much. When Marcus received the news, he broke down again, but this time with a mixture of grief and gratitude. He would get to see his mother's grave. He would get to say goodbye. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't redemption. But it was something. The day before the scheduled visit, Marcus couldn't sleep at all. He lay awake, thinking about what he would say to a grave. How do you apologize to someone who can no longer hear you? But he knew he had to try. Not for her, because she was beyond his words now. But for himself. For his soul. For the chance, however small, that somewhere, somehow, his mother might know he was sorry. The prison van moved slowly through the countryside, escorted by 2 police vehicles. Inside, Marcus sat handcuffed, flanked by 2 guards. Sarah sat across from him, watching his face. Marcus stared out the window, seeing the landscape change from city to rural. His heart pounded with each passing mile. Soon he would be standing at his mother's grave. Soon he would have to face the full reality of what he had done. The village came into view. Marcus's chest tightened. The last time he was here, he had driven through in his expensive SUV, too proud and too ashamed to acknowledge where he came from. Now he returned in chains, broken and humbled. The van stopped near the village center. Word had spread that Marcus was coming. Villagers gathered at a distance, curious, judgmental, sad. They whispered to each other as Marcus was helped out of the van, his hands still cuffed. An elderly man stepped forward. He was a village elder who had witnessed Marcus's rise and knew of his fall. Marcus, the elder said, his voice neither warm nor cold, just factual. Sir, Marcus said, his voice hoarse. Your mother waited for you, the elder said. Every day she waited. Marcus's eyes filled with tears. I know. I'm sorry. The elder studied him for a long moment. Sorry doesn't bring her back. But it's a start. He turned. Follow me. The small procession walked through the village. Marcus saw the houses he had grown up around, the roads he had played on as a child, the market where his mother had sold firewood. Everything looked smaller than he remembered, but also more real. This was the truth he had run from. These were the roots he had tried to cut away. They reached the cemetery. It was a simple place, peaceful under the shade of large trees. The elder led them to a fresh grave marked with a wooden cross. The guards loosened Marcus's handcuffs slightly so he could move his hands more freely, though they stayed close. Marcus approached the grave slowly. With each step, his legs felt weaker. When he finally stood before the mound of earth that covered his mother, his knees gave way. He fell forward, his hands touching the soft soil. And the grief that had been building inside him since Sarah's revelation finally poured out completely. Mama, he sobbed, his voice raw and broken. Mama, I'm here. I'm finally here. The guards stepped back slightly, giving him space. Even they were moved by the depth of his anguish. I'm sorry, Marcus cried, his tears falling onto the grave. I'm so sorry, Mama. I forgot everything you taught me. I forgot all your sacrifices. I forgot your love. He pressed his face against the earth, not caring about the dirt or the people watching. You carried firewood on your head, so I could go to school, he said. You went hungry, so I could eat. You wore torn clothes, so I could have uniforms. And when I finally became successful, I threw you away. I was ashamed of you." Marcus's body shook with sobs. "I saw you on the road that day. I saw the firewood. I saw your tears. And I drove away. I denied you, Mama. I denied my own mother." Sarah stood nearby, crying silently. The guards looked away, uncomfortable witnesses to such private grief. "I wanted to apologize," Marcus continued. "I wanted to tell you I understand now. I wanted to bring you to live with me. I wanted to give you everything you deserved. But I waited too long. I was too proud. And now you're gone." The wind rustled the leaves above. A bird called in the distance. The village sound seemed far away. Marcus sat back on his heels, looking at the simple wooden cross. The neighbor told, "Sarah, you talked about me until the end. That you kept hoping I would come. Mama, I don't deserve that kind of love. I never did." He wiped his face with his cuffed hands. "But I want you to know something. Even though you're gone, even though I can't fix what I broke, I'm going to try to be better. I'm going to try to become the son you believed I could be. I'm going to honor your memory by helping other people. When I get out of prison, I'm going to build schools in villages like this one. I'm going to help old women who carry heavy loads. I'm going to make sure no child is ashamed of their mother." Marcus's voice grew stronger, more determined. "It won't bring you back. It won't erase my sins. But maybe, just maybe, it will give your suffering some meaning. Maybe your sacrifice won't have been completely wasted on an ungrateful son." He placed both palms flat on the grave. "Thank you, Mama. Thank you for everything you gave me. Thank you for loving me, even when I didn't deserve it. Thank you for never giving up hope in me, even when I gave up on you." "I love you," Marcus whispered. "I always loved you. I was just too foolish and too proud to show it. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." The elder stepped forward after several minutes of silence. "It's time," he said gently. Marcus nodded. He leaned forward and kissed the earth of the grave. "Goodbye, Mama," he said. "Rest well. Your son finally came home." The guards helped Marcus to his feet. As they led him away, Marcus turned back again and again, unable to tear his eyes from the grave. Sarah walked beside him, her hand briefly touching his arm in comfort despite the handcuffs. As they approached the van, an old woman, the neighbor who had cared for Mama Rose, stepped forward. She looked Marcus in the eye. "Your mother forgave you," the woman said quietly. "Before she died," she said. "My son is lost, but he will find his way back. He is a good boy. He just forgot." Marcus's tears started again. "She said that." The woman nodded. "She never stopped believing in you. Even when everyone else gave up, she believed." Those words would stay with Marcus for the rest of his life. His mother had forgiven him even when he hadn't asked for forgiveness. She had believed in him even when he had abandoned her. That was the nature of a mother's love. Unconditional, unending, undeserved. As the van drove away from Riverside Village, Marcus looked back through the window until the cemetery disappeared from view. He had finally said goodbye to his mother. But the journey toward becoming the man she had hoped he would be was just beginning. 5 years passed. Marcus served his sentence quietly, becoming a model prisoner. He worked in the prison workshop. He mentored younger inmates. He read books about social development and rural economics. He attended every counseling session offered. But most importantly, he changed on the inside. The arrogant billionaire who had denied his mother was gone. In his place was a man who understood the weight of his sins and carried them with humble determination. Sarah visited regularly, though their relationship had fundamentally changed. She was no longer a wife in the traditional sense. She was a companion, a friend, someone who had chosen to witness his transformation even though she owed him nothing. "You don't have to keep coming," Marcus told her during one visit in the 3rd year. "I wouldn't blame you if you wanted to divorce me and move on with your life." Sarah was quiet for a moment. "I made a promise to stand by you. But you're right that things are different now. When you get out, we need to talk honestly about our future." Marcus nodded. He understood. The man Sarah had married no longer existed, and the man he was becoming might not be someone she wanted to be married to. That was fair. On the morning of his release, Marcus walked out of the prison gates wearing simple clothes and carrying a small bag of belongings. Sarah was there waiting, along with a lawyer who had helped expedite his release after new evidence proved some of the charges against him had been partially fabricated by business rivals. The corruption charges remained valid, and Marcus had served time for genuine crimes. But the complete case had been more complex than originally presented. "How do you feel?" Sarah asked as they drove away from the prison. "Grateful," Marcus said simply. "And scared." "Scared of what?" "Of forgetting again," Marcus admitted. "Of becoming that person again. Pride is a powerful drug, Sarah. Success can make you forget where you came from." Sarah glanced at him. This was not the Marcus she had married. This was someone deeper, more thoughtful, more human. They drove not to the mansion. Marcus had sold it, along with most of his assets, to pay restitution and fines, but to a modest apartment in a middle-class neighborhood. "I've kept this place for you," Sarah said. "It's simple, but it's clean and safe." Marcus looked at the small apartment. 2 bedrooms, a basic kitchen, a simple living room. To someone who had once owned a mansion, it might have seemed like a punishment. To Marcus, it felt like freedom. "Thank you," he said sincerely. That evening, they sat across from each other at a small dining table. Sarah had cooked a simple meal: rice, vegetables, and chicken. Nothing fancy, but made with care. "Marcus," Sarah began, "we need to talk about us." Marcus nodded. "I know. I kept my promise," Sarah said. "I stood by you through the trial, through prison, through everything. But I need to be honest with you." "Please," Marcus said. "I want you to be honest." Sarah took a deep breath. "I can't stay married to you." The words hung in the air. Marcus felt sadness, but not surprise. He had expected this. "I understand," he said quietly. "It's not that I hate you," Sarah continued, tears forming in her eyes. "It's that I can't forget what you did to your mother. Every time I look at you, I remember that old woman on the road. I remember the lies you told. I remember how easily you cut her out of your life." Marcus nodded, his own eyes wet. "You deserve better than a man who could do that." "I do," Sarah agreed. "But more than that, I need to be with someone I can fully trust. And I don't know if I can ever fully trust you again. Not because you might commit fraud, but because you might deny the people you're supposed to love when they become inconvenient." The truth of her words cut deep, but Marcus accepted them. "You're right. I don't blame you. But," Sarah added, "I want you to know that I've seen you change. What you've been through, the remorse you've shown, the work you've done on yourself, it's real. I believe you're different now." "Thank you for seeing that," Marcus said. "So here's what I propose," Sarah continued. "We file for divorce, but we remain friends. I'll support the work you want to do. I'll help however I can, but as friends and partners in purpose, not as husband and wife." Marcus extended his hand across the table. "That's more than I deserve." "Thank you, Sarah." They shook hands, and somehow it felt more honest than their wedding vows had been. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. It was quiet and uncontested. Sarah kept her maiden name and her independence. Marcus signed everything without argument. But true to her word, Sarah stayed involved in Marcus's life as a friend and supporter. Because Marcus had a mission now. A purpose that had been born from grief and guilt, but had grown into something larger. He started a foundation called the Rose Chin Memorial Fund. Its mission was simple but powerful: to support elderly women in rural areas who had sacrificed everything for their children. The foundation provided financial assistance, health care, and housing for widows and single mothers in villages across the country. It built community centers where women could learn skills and support each other. It created programs that connected successful people with their aging parents, encouraging reconciliation and care. Marcus poured his life into this work. He traveled to villages, meeting with women who reminded him of his mother. He listened to their stories. He saw their struggles. And he used whatever resources he had left to help. He never promoted himself. He never took credit publicly. The foundation's website didn't even have his photo. This wasn't about rebuilding his reputation. This was about honoring his mother's memory. One day, 2 years after his release, Marcus visited Riverside Village again. This time he came not in a luxury SUV, but in a simple van with other foundation workers. They were delivering supplies to the village health clinic and meeting with elderly women who needed support. Marcus wore plain clothes and worked alongside everyone else, carrying boxes and setting up equipment. The village elder, now very old and frail, saw Marcus and called him over. "You've changed," the elder said. "I hope so," Marcus replied. "Your mother would be proud of what you're doing," the elder said. Marcus's eyes filled with tears. "Do you think so?" "I know so," the elder said. "She always believed you would become a great man. Not because of money, but because of heart. She was right. It just took you longer to understand what greatness really means." After finishing work that day, Marcus walked alone to the cemetery. He stood before his mother's grave. Someone had placed fresh flowers there, probably one of the neighbors who still remembered Mama Rose. "Hi, Mama," Marcus said quietly. "I'm back. I try to come every month now." He knelt beside the grave. "I have a lot to tell you. The foundation is doing well. We've helped over 500 women this year. Sarah's doing great too. She remarried, actually. A good man. A doctor. I was at the wedding. She seems happy." Marcus smiled slightly. "She told me you would have liked him. He reminds her of you, actually. Very kind. Very sacrificial. I'm not rich anymore, Mama. I live in a small apartment. I take the bus sometimes. I cook my own meals. And you know what? I'm happier now than I ever was in that mansion." The wind rustled the leaves. A butterfly landed briefly on the gravestone before flying away. "I still make mistakes," Marcus admitted. "I'm still learning. But I'm trying to be the son you believed I could be. Every day, I try to honor your memory by being better than I was yesterday." "I miss you," he whispered. "I wish I could hug you one more time. I wish I could tell you in person how sorry I am and how much I love you. But since I can't, I'm going to show it through my actions. I'm going to help other mothers so that no one else suffers the way you did." Marcus placed his hand on the grave. "Rest well, Mama. Your son finally understands. Love isn't about what you can get. It's about what you're willing to give. You taught me that. It just took me too long to learn." As Marcus walked away from the cemetery, the sun was setting over the village. Children played in the distance. Women prepared evening meals. Life continued as it always does. Marcus looked back one last time at his mother's grave. Then he turned toward the future, carrying her memory not as a burden, but as a light to guide his path. Because sometimes the hardest lessons cost us everything. But if we're willing to learn, they can also teach us what truly matters. Family, love, humility, sacrifice. These were the things Mama Rose had known all along. These were the things she had tried to teach her son. And finally, after losing everything, his freedom, his wealth, his wife, and his mother, Marcus had learned them too. Not because he wanted to, but because life, in its cruel mercy, had left him no other choice. The end. This powerful story teaches us that success without character is meaningless, and that the love of a mother is the most precious gift we can ever receive. Don't take your parents for granted. Honor them while you still can. What did you think of Marcus's journey? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Hit the notification bell so you never miss our powerful stories. Thank you for watching, and remember, never be too proud to honor those who helped you become who you are. See you in the next story.